Hi there. So I painted myself into a corner to the point where I have to drill this MDF for the holes to mount it to the platform. I have to do it now. I can't wait. And how that happened was I was using this dowel and this metric ruler to tell the stepper motors how many steps it takes to go 10 millimeters, 100 millimeters. And after I was done with that, I got to thinking about drawing squares on this MDF so I can finally get around to squaring this gantry. And I had a dial indicator on this, and it was all over the map, and I discovered if I went over to the dial indicator and just lightly pressed on the MDF, that I could easily squeeze 100 or 50 thou out of the measurement. That got me thinking that I have to screw this to the platform before I can move on. As I started looking at the holes, it was pretty obvious that none of them are in the same place this way or this way. They're not off by much, but they are off. Some as much as a couple millimeters. So I got to thinking, as long as I have this dowel in here, why don't I have the CNC tell me where these holes are instead of me trying to tell it? And how I did that was, let me zoom in. So this is what I did for each hole on this platform, is I would bring over our X, Y, and Z axis, bring this down a little, very slowly. And you can see as that point goes into the hole that you can, the deeper down it goes, the easier it is to find the center. So I'll go down some more. And to the left. You can see as it goes in deeper, this gets wider and this, it becomes obvious which way to go. Anyway, like so. And there is less than half a mil. So using this method, the most I could be off is half a millimeter. So because I did it that way and I had the machine tell me where these holes are instead of the other way around, I'm kind of frozen. I can't adjust the stepper motors. I can't adjust the spindle. I can't square the gantry. I can't do anything or I'll lose my position on all these holes. I have to drill these holes before I do anything. So I guess that's what we're going to do. Now the way most people do it, at least what I read, is this is a 6 millimeter hole. And a lot of times they'll make a very large hole and then use a large washer. That way they can just get it close, and that's fine. For some reason, I didn't feel like doing that. Mainly because I bought all the screws, but I didn't think to buy any washers. But now that I know where all these holes are, I'm thinking what we're going to try to do here tonight is just make a 7 millimeter hole and use, let me find it. Here we go. So, like I was saying, I'm going to try to just make a 7 millimeter hole, which will give us that half mil you saw when I was using the dowel pen to find the hole in the first place. This is a 13 millimeter head. So, we're just going to do it, and if it doesn't work out, then I'll buy some washers. But I kind of like the idea of knowing exactly where these holes are in case I ever need it in the future. My hope is that once we get a secure platform, I can continue configuring or dialing in this machine. And then when everything's all square and true, I should be able to come back and remeasure a few holes. That'll tell me what the delta is, and I should be able to extrapolate with the numbers I have now where the holes are. But for now, we're just going to drill holes. Okay, I've spent a couple hours getting this jig set up. So we've got a straight edge that's actually screwed to the platform, and that's going to come into play later. Then over in the front we have a piece of wood clamped to the platform with these stabby bits. And the reason for that is we need to offset this panel. Obviously we can't drill into this metal. And hopefully that's enough so that we miss every rail. And on the other side I got just the one clamp. Hopefully that'll be enough. I don't think it's going to see a lot of pressure left or right, up, down. So I have a fixture set up for this to be 0, and it's actually 2 mil above the MDF in case we have any kind of variance throughout this run, that it's not, the bit's not going to slam into the side. And the MDF is 20 millimeters. And we've got our cut set for 24 millimeters. So 2 for the safety above, 20 to get through, and then 2 extra on the back end. Okay, we're ready to go. I'm going to put on some hearing protection and run a vac while we're doing this, because I cannot stand milling MDF. Just hate it. Now there are a few things that can go wrong. For instance, if we try to plow into the steel like I'm milling MDF, then that's not only the end of my bit, but it's probably the end of my Z-axis. But I'm pretty confident we're not going to do that. So, if it does go south, I've got a beer to cry into. Here we go. So I don't think that footage of the actual milling came out very well, but hopefully you can see how these holes they're not aligned perfectly. So, time to unclamp it and see how we did. Thankfully, before we unclamped this MDF, we still have another operation to do. So we need to mill a pocket for the head of this screw. This is a 11 mil by 4 mil. So we're going to change all our 7 mil circles to I guess 12 mil, and we'll do a 5 mil plunge. And that should make sure this head is below the surface. Here we are back at 0, ready to run the new program. Okay, same drill as before. The battery on the camera is getting low, so I'm going to run and gun. Okay, so I think we're done with this camera. I'm going to put it back on the telescope. I'm going to have to buy a new one for this YouTube stuff. previous video I released was meant to be 2 episodes, but the audio and video loss was such a shit show that I had to combine it into 1 video. So I think we're done with that. Anyway, here's the finished product. You can see that screw fits in there nicely. Moment of truth. Let's unclamp this MDF and see how we did. So I put 1 screw down here at this corner and then another one at that very far corner. It doesn't really show up on the camera, it looks, but I went through every single hole, and for some reason this one in the bottom right, we missed that one by a mile. That must be 3-4 mil we missed it by. So I went through with a 6 mil Allen wrench, and all the holes except for that one right there seem to be spot on. So I'm calling that a win. So we're at the back of the MDF right now, and this is the rail I cannot reach with my spindle. So we're going to have to do these by hand, which is why I installed that straight edge. So using that straight edge, we'll push this forward, transfer all the holes up to the top, and measure exactly how far I pushed it back. So we're going to drill these by hand. If I get even half of them, I think that'll be fine. We just need to make sure this end does not curl up in case there's any product that goes beyond this point. We don't want it curling up. Okay, let me see if I can explain what's going on here. So we have the original reference point we made before we moved the board. And if you measure the distance between these 2 points, we've got 33 millimeters. That's how far the board moved. Now we also have a reference point here going all the way down. That's off of the face of this platform. And I just had lined it up so the first one is, so that the first hole is right on the bottom of this reference point. That means that the bottom of this hole is 44 millimeters from this line. And the hole is 6 mil wide, so we need to subtract 3. That gives us 41 millimeters. And then, once we push this board back down, we're going to lose our 33. So that's 41 minus 33, which leaves us with 8 millimeter. So that means the center of this hole is 8 millimeters down from this line. And that's the method we're going to use going all the way down. One thing I will mention is this reference line. I actually, when I first made it, I did it square off of this face. That turned out to be a mistake because the board's not perfectly square in reference to the platform. So what I should have did, or what I had to do, is erase 4 feet of pencil. That was fun. But this point here is, the line here is actually referenced off of this face. That's why this math is going to work. And again, I'm going to do the same for each hole all the way down. This will give you an idea of what we're dealing with as far as these holes. So that, the reference line is on the bottom of that one. Next one, it is up about probably a millimeter. This one is probably 3 millimeters, probably 2, back to 0, and so on and so on. And to be honest, this being the back of the board, we're never going to cut in this area. So once we get the center lines for all these holes, we don't have to worry about where this board is anymore. We'll just push it forward. I'll make some G-code to create just one hole, and I'll just keep moving the gantry around and run that small program 20 times. Our G-code for the single hole has been loaded into Mach 3. So essentially for each hole, we're just going to move over and we're just going to eyeball it. That's about all we can do for right now. Which makes you wonder why we went through all that effort to measure when we're just going to eyeball it in the end. I'm going to eyeball our z-axis as well. Okay, so I'm going to go over to Mach 3 and run the program. MDF. So just like that, I'm going to do the other ones off camera so I can run the vac. Job done on the back of the board. We didn't do too bad. That may not show up, but we did pretty good. They all pretty much look like that. Except for this one, where I put the spindle over the wrong mark. So that's my bad. And there's 2 more down here. These 2, right here, they're off by about 3 mil. So I must have did the math wrong. But we do have screws in the back now. With the board installed, we can start thinking about the top layer. There's going to be another layer of MDF that goes on top of this. I've already started calibrating my holes for the hardware. We're going to be putting T-nuts on the bottom of this board and a couple other doohickeys. We'll do that next video. Thanks for watching.